Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today for another We Economy Wednesday. My name is Christian Barnes. I am the founder and lead financial coach of Do Better Financial, and welcome to another Wednesday. The last week has been interesting, for lack of a better term. For those of you who do not know, I made an emergency trip to deal with some family stuff. So this week seems way shorter than my usual ones. We have a family member who is suffering from cancer. For those of you who participated in helping send my mom and my aunt to go and visit her, thank you so much. My husband and I decided at the last minute that we really wanted to go too. And I'm glad that we got to go. So for those of you who did that, thank you so much for participating. That has nothing to do with today's topic, but I wanted to say it anyway. They are actually going back, God willing, at the end of the month to be with her again. Because, life is short and it's only money, which sounds crazy coming from the financial coach, but it's true. And if you don't use it for the things that actually matter to you, what good is it? Which is kind of what we talked about last week. So I wasn't that far off base. So for those of you who joined me in the new January challenge, thank you so much for coming along for this journey. It's been eye-opening, it's been difficult, it's been fun, it's been exciting, it's been so many things. And we had, I believe it was about 25 participants who, stated what their goals were and what they were trying to do. And a lot of them, I am sure, achieved them. I heard from people who were working on things like reading more, who were trying to do less shopping, who were trying to do acts of kindness, or be more physically active. And I also saw them over the course of these last 30 days accomplishing those goals, which is amazing. And I think they deserve a round of applause. I'm not going to clap too loud because it'll sound crazy in the microphone. But for those of you at home, if you can cheer for them, please give them a little whoop whoop. Not the kind that's going to pierce anybody's ears for my sake and your ears. But if you're in the house, you can tell them to cover their ears. Make a little noise for them, okay? But if you're like me, and you didn't quite do what you had set out to do, now the question is, what happens if you don't achieve your goal? What happens if you fail, right? That word that I personally avoid like the plague, and then I'm sure that I'm not alone in that. But what happens now, right? I have to wrestle with that because I personally set a couple of goals that I did not achieve. One of which was to complete my personal finance course, right? I didn't finish. I also was supposed to be recording some videos for a new project that I'm working on. I did not get to record any of those videos. Technically, I failed the new January challenge, right? I didn't reach the goal that I set for myself. And so I just want to let's get some clarity about exactly what failing really is. Failure means that you tried. It means that you attempted to do something, and though you did not accomplish it, you did try, which is more than I can say for myself in the past. I frequently would not try for fear of failing. And that's not even the goal, right? Because failure is really just the beginning of the learning process. When you are a kid and you try to get up and walk, or rather you try to jump up and run, and only to realize, man, that's not going to work for me at all. I should probably try going slower. That failure, that falling down the first time you try to walk doesn't mean you'll never walk. It just means that you need to try again. So I'm thinking of this failure first off, and I hope that you will too, think of yours as your first try, and that you get to try again. So what do we do now, right? What happens after you fail? The first thing you need to do is acknowledge that you made some progress, okay? For me, this is some very specific things, like I came up with a title for my course. I did not have one of those, even though I tried to do this back in September. I came up with the scripts for all of the videos that are going, the large majority of the videos, except for pretty much one, that are going to be a part of my course. I have started the process. I'm about halfway through creating the curriculum, or rather the handouts, the workbook that's going to go with this course. And I've actually been more consistent with reading. So my third goal was actually pertaining to devotion, right? Spending time with God. And I've been more consistent at that than I have in years, literal years. So I did something, right? I did not reach my end goal, but I made progress. And so I want you, if you feel like you didn't quite get where you're trying to go, maybe you were trying to lose 20 pounds. Maybe you were trying to write a book. Maybe you're like my husband and you were trying to write a certain amount of words a day and you didn't quite hit the big number, right? You didn't reach the end goal. But I want you to recognize the progress that you're making, because maybe before this challenge, you were writing nothing, right? Maybe your goal was to write 1,000 words and you started writing 500 and you feel like a failure because you didn't do 1,000. But before, you were literally writing 0. 500 is an accomplishment. Go you, right? And I have to remind myself of that every time I start to feel bad about the fact that, between March 10th and June 10th, I did not accomplish what I set out to do. I made progress. I am much farther. I have a lot to show for it, but I'm not done, right? The next thing that I'm doing, and that you should do as well, is that you need to assess your obstacles. There are frequently things that kind of stand in our way, or that we allow to get in our way when we're trying to accomplish something, when we're trying to do something new. And for me, I realized that was a lack of planning, right? The biggest one is I didn't have a time set aside to do the things I wanted to do. When I actually got a calendar, got out my Google Calendar and wrote on it, work on course at a specific time each night, I did. There were a couple of days where I had to postpone it because life happened. But for the most part, when I put that on my calendar, it was like, okay, Christian, get everything done before 8 o'clock because you have an hour and a half or an hour on the calendar, or whatever the amount of time was to do this specific thing. And I did it. And so the fact that I did that, when I did that, I managed to get all of my scripts written in the course of about a week, a little over a week. It was that realization, and I want to say out loud to you guys that I didn't realize that was something I needed to do until we were almost 3 weeks into this challenge. It's like 2.5 weeks when I realized that was the best way for me to actually get stuff done, was to write it on my calendar. And at that point, I actually went and bought a calendar specifically for this purpose. It's cute, it's purple, it's fun, and it allows me to schedule out some time to do the things that I need to do to reach my goal ever. Any goal, right? Anything that I write in there allows me to see that there's time allotted for it, and to also protect that time from things that would like to creep in and steal it, which is the other thing that is a big obstacle for me, and that is distractions, either those that come from without or those that I seek out to avoid doing the thing that I know I need to be doing. Can anyone else relate to this? My 2 biggest obstacles are probably YouTube, games on my phone, and just anything other than what I should be doing. So, for instance, when I was supposed to be writing the script for this particular video, I found myself working on a million other things, which were also important, but weren't what I was planning to do right then. There are times when I'm supposed to be writing and all I can think about is the groceries that we need to go order. So just thinking through the things that have stopped you as you were progressing, or have stopped your progress rather, have hemmed you up, have made it so that you put it off to the end of the night and then you're too exhausted. How can you mitigate those things? The other thing that you may need to do is re-examine your goal. Was it realistic? Did you even have a plan at all? Right? So as for the realistic part, I think we discussed this when we first started the challenge, that we needed to set goals that were realistic. And I don't think I properly assessed that. One of the things I personally missed out on is that throughout the goals that I have set, they weren't all completely dependent on me only. There were times when I needed input from others. There are things that I need to accomplish that I can't do in a vacuum by myself. For instance, filming my videos. Now, when I was planning to just film them on my cell phone, I can do that all by myself. And I technically still can do that, but my husband And I had planned to film them with the camera. We wanted to have decent lighting and a good setup and the whole 9 yards. And that means that I need him to participate. And I didn't really take into account the fact that he's in school. He has other, priorities on his list as far as, like I said, he's trying to write, and, he's recently trying to get into a new business venture. And he's also a minister at not only at our church, but he's taken on pretty much all of the video production for the live streams during the pandemic, right? So he has a lot on his plate, and I realized that I needed to get on his calendar as well. And so at one point I decided I was trying to do something by a specific date, and my husband was like, you want to have everything edited and uploaded by then? And I was like, oh, if you need to, I didn't think about the fact that I need you not only to help me film but to edit. I don't currently have the skill set for editing. He does, right? It's something he's been learning. So reassessing what it was that I wanted to accomplish and who all needed to be involved, and seeing if it was realistic based on the other things in my life. While I really want to grow my business and I want to finish this course, I also want to spend time with my husband. One of the blessings in disguise of going away on this trip was that we just got to spend time being together. Even though, yes, sometimes church stuff crept in, we got to actually hang out. We drove to downtown Raleigh and walked around. If you've been keeping up with all of the protests and all of the things going on, there was actually a young lady who went downtown in Raleigh and wrote "End Racism Now" on one of the streets. And we actually had the opportunity, before we dropped off our rental car, to go by, take pictures, and just be in an atmosphere where other people were like, wow, this is happening, like to be part of what was going on right then. And so that was a really amazing experience that I got to share with my husband. And because even though we've been spending all of our time in the house, we're frequently talking about business or finances. We don't get to just be. So that was a nice change for us. It was a good opportunity to not be worrying about the dishes and the laundry and the air condition. That's a separate story, installing the bidet, which finally came. Can you believe that I told you guys I was ordering a bidet 30 days ago and it just got here? I can't, but it is. It's sitting on the table. Will it get installed? Yes. When? Dunno. Side note, we'll go back to re-examining your goals, seeing if it's realistic, seeing if the size was too big, if the time frame wasn't realistic, if you had it too broad. Maybe you need to narrow it down. Maybe instead of saying finish my course, maybe I should have said, spend this much time on my course each day. That way, if I spent the time on it, that would have been not a failure. It's like, oh, I'm still making progress, which is how I'm viewing it anyway. I guess I kind of mentally reassessed my goal instead of putting it on paper. I would like to put it on paper. The last thing you need to do is adjust and run through the tape. So yes, technically today, the new January challenge is over, but your goal didn't go away, right? If your goal was to move more, you still got a body, you still need to move it. If your goal is to be kind, there are plenty of times and occasions for you to do just that. I still want to finish my course. And while I didn't do it in 30 days, that doesn't mean that I will never do it, right? I'm going to keep working on it. Am I trying to work on it in perpetuity? No. I'm going to set up a filming schedule, a realistic one with my husband. I'm going to set up an editing schedule, a realistic one with my husband, and we'll work through that process. If I need to change how I'm going to do my videos so less editing is required, we can do that too, but that requires conversations. It's not something that I can do in a vacuum by myself. So for me, that's the adjustment. The last thing you need to do, run through the tape. Whenever you're seeing, and it makes me sad, I just realized the Olympics were canceled again, postponed. Anyway, side note, there's this thing called the Marble Olympics. If you're desperate for some sports entertainment, you should totally check it out. I'm going to link it below because me and my husband love it. Anywho, whenever you see a racer, the most important thing you can do is keep running until you've gone all the way through the tape. Why is that? Because that last lunge can literally decide whether or not you win. Now, that makes sense in the concept of like you're racing other people, but for yourself, like for me, I've gotten to this point where I have things ready for the course, right? But the course has not officially launched. I have to keep pushing until the course is launched, right? I can't stop like, oh, I got my videos and everything's ready to go. Like, I have to finish the marketing piece. I have to finish all of those other things, right? So keep going. Don't, if you didn't succeed in 30 days, it's not a big deal. Even if you did succeed, you probably should make sure you keep going. Here's why. If you were trying to build some sort of habit like reading or being kind or just shopping less, it takes 90 days to really solidify a habit into your regular routine. So this was 30. You got another 60 to go. Run through the tape. Keep going. Don't stop that goal. Don't quit. I know that the calendar that I put out was only 30 days. Print another one. The nice thing is that they don't have dates on it. It just says new January. That can be June again. These dates are arbitrary. I'm going to say it again. These dates are arbitrary. As long as you're still alive, you still have an opportunity to continue working on the goal that you have set for yourself. So go for it. My mantra for this course specifically is I will not quit. I will not have failed as a finality until I quit. Right now, this failure is just a stepping stone on the learning process. It's just allowing me, like I said, to reassess how I can go about being more effective in accomplishing the things I set goals for, instead of making some wild goal randomly and having no idea whether or not I can accomplish it, if it's even feasible, who I need to get involved, and then feeling depressed when I don't get it. Right? I think the biggest success right now that I could say for me came out of this challenge is the realization that trying to do things and not accomplishing them, like not finishing them, is not the end of the road. This failure is not final. Doing better is a continuous process, right? It's one of the reasons I named my company that, my business that, is because it's not about doing perfect. It's about doing better. And so as long as you're making progress on that journey of doing better, you're doing better, right? Change is supposed to be your chance to do better. These challenges are opportunities for you to do better. Like, I was going to say these challenges are opportunities to challenge yourself to do better. That's very redundant, but you get where I'm going, right? One of my things when I was quitting was to quit fully scripting my videos, which means that I have to fill in more of the blanks from my head, which typically works well for me, but sometimes you get me staring up the ceiling. Sorry about that. So each challenge that you take on, each time you get a new change, take it on full speed. Go for it. Lean into it. Make the adjustments. Go back and reassess. Look at that failure as a teaching point, not as a final, closing of the book. It might be the end of a chapter. It might just be the end of a sentence. It might be a comma, right? It does not have to be the end. As long as you still have breath in your body, go for it, right? Make these opportunities count. That is all I have for the new January challenge. For those of you who joined me, thank you so much. If you want to continue, I can tell you right now, I'm not done. So I shall continue to challenge myself to do not only this course, but once we're done with this course, to do the project that we had in mind for a while, and to be realistic about the time that I have to dedicate to it, especially to make the quality of things that I want. If you want to keep going, let me know in the comments, right? I initially set this up to be a 30-day challenge, but if you guys want to make this something regular where we pick one thing, I think that would be a change that I would make for next time. I would only choose one thing to really focus on, because in reality, that's pretty much all I've been able to do. Just being honest, okay? I do not currently have any updates as far as the stimulus package goes. They're still in limbo in the Senate. The one that was passed by the House, the HEROES Act, has been sitting there for almost a month now. And at this point, they're still saying that it's going to be another month before they even pass anything else. So for those of you who are hoping for a second stimulus check or, anything like that, don't hold your breath. I'm not saying it's not happening, but there's a very real chance they may not. So go ahead and plan and work and plan for it to not happen. And then if it does, it'll be a pleasant surprise instead of hoping that it's going to happen and then being sorely disappointed when it doesn't, right? Last thing, last week we talked about being wildly generous. Obviously, I hope a lot of you have taken the opportunity, if you weren't able to go protest or to participate in something like that, that you have taken the time to write your senators, that you've taken the time to call your elected officials, that you have donated to those causes. I want to encourage you to run through the tape with ending racism, right? It is not something that's going to happen in one day. It is an entrenched, system that is really the basis of a lot of the things in the United States of America. They literally built the country on slavery and the premise that people who had higher concentrations of melanin in their skin were inferior and only good for work. That is entrenched in everything that we do, and rooting it out is not going to end in a day. It's not going to end in a week. It's not going to end in a presidency. It's probably not going to end in a decade. It's going to take work. So for those of you who chose to donate, thank you so much. Keep doing it. For those of you who are writing your senators, thank you so much. Keep doing it. For those of you who are speaking out, if you are someone who is not a person of color and you've been speaking out and you've been, raising your voice from the mountaintops, I've seen a lot of the YouTubers that I follow doing this. I've seen my friends on Facebook doing this. I'm not going to shout anybody out specifically because I don't want to leave anybody out just because I haven't seen your posts. But for those of you who are challenging those around you, every time they say something, not just this week and not just for the next month, not just while we remember George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery's names, not just while those are in the front of your mind, but in perpetuity, to challenge people who present ideas and ideals that think of others as less than, or assume that, something's not real just because you don't do it. You don't deal with it, right? Keep doing it. I know you're going to get tired. Trust me. The entire Black population of the United States is tired, okay? But we don't get to quit because this doesn't change. I'm asking you not to quit until things do change. Thank you so much for joining me again on this Weekonomy Wednesday. Again, my name is Christian Barnes, and I will see you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.